members Pam Templer and Hugh Madison of the Tree Planting Committee, our arborist, Pete Jutras, our arborist, and Jack Schleifer, our town arborist, as well as Millie Pradine, our Director of Parks and Open Space, and the team from the design team from the MBTA who'll be presenting today. So this hearing is required by state statute chapter 87, and it is for removal of public shade trees. The purpose of the hearing today is to learn about the MBTA. I'm just going to admit that the MBTA's plans for 5 remaining stations on the Sea Line. We will do the design plan for the trains, the tree removal and tree replanting plan. There will be further meetings with the Transportation Board to review parking, and there will any person who objects to any of the removals of trees described tonight should submit in writing their objection, and that would be taken to the select board for the final decision about the plan. We have a lot to cover tonight, so we're going to have the MBTA team present their plan in its entirety, and then we'll open the we'll allow questions from the tree planting team, from the members of the general public, and we really encourage people to share their comments during that comment time at the end of the meeting. We know there's a lot of people here and a lot of interest, so because we want to hear from everyone, we're asking people to limit their comment to 2 minutes, and we'll have to mute anyone who goes over just to allow everyone to be able to speak. Letters that have already been received will go in the public record, and we will hopefully answer many of the questions that were submitted ahead of time during the presentation today and during the question and answer. So without further introduction, I'll introduce our MBTA team, Gwen Dunleavy and Matt Conover, who will present their plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I am going to start off with maybe a request for a little bit of leeway. Gwen made an attempt to get home on the Orange Line, and the T does have trouble even for us employees. And so she was just told to exit the train and is on a platform right now trying to get some connectivity. I had the beginning slides anyway, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is share my screen and start in the beginning. And she has the primary details on each of the stations, though I certainly am familiar enough with the project that I believe I can hold the water while we wait for her to join. So if I could just ask for a little bit of grace from the folks on the call, I would greatly appreciate it. Can folks see the screen now? Wonderful.
Yes, we can.
So good evening. It's great to be back in front of the Tree Planting Committee. Folks may remember that we brought our first 2 stations, Taplin and Inglewood, late last fall. Tonight, we're going to go ahead and present similar information. My name is Matt Conover. I oversee major projects initiatives within the MBTA that are of interest to the FTA. I also live in Brookline and am a Sea Branch rider, so I invested in this project from both the MBTA side of the house as well as being a Brookline resident. As I mentioned, Gwen is working on getting on the call, so she will be joining me here shortly, and together we're going to go through the presentation. During the presentation, we'll provide an overview of the project, and we'll discuss individual station improvements and present next steps. As I mentioned, we were here back in the fall, presented the first 2 of the Sea Branch stations, and today we're here to present the same details on the remaining stations and to request the committee's approval. The MBTA has incorporated the lessons learned from the first 2 stations into the design of the remaining stations to ensure that the required accessibility improvements are made with minimum disruption to the existing environment. Currently, there are 9 inaccessible stations on the C branch. Accessibility is a shared priority of the MBTA and the town of Brookline, which seeks to ensure a safe, livable community for all residents. The project will upgrade 6 stations, widening and raising platforms to meet minimum required accessibility standards. For those who may be familiar with the service today, St. Mary's and Coolidge Corner are examples of stations that currently meet the accessibility guidelines I'm describing. As part of this project, we will also combine Brandon Hall and Fairbank Street stations into a single station, which will improve travel times and ensure that the new Type 10 trains can serve all stations along the branch. Lastly, we will eliminate Kent Street Station due to its proximity to Hawes and to further improve travel times. These significant improvements do require trade-offs, which our team has actively engaged with the town on. Working with town staff, elected officials, the public, and technical experts, we have gone through a series of options and refinements to balance these trade-offs and to develop a project that provides equal access to all and minimizes negative impacts to the maximum extent possible. For those that are familiar with the 9 stations that I mentioned, the challenge of the existing conditions will be familiar. Our team has heard from numerous individuals who cannot access the Green Line from the station in front of their own home due to some of these challenges. If I start on the left in the top row, no protection from traffic. Stations like St. Paul, which are shown here, do not offer barriers from automotive traffic. As a daily rider, I often worry about my own safety. The next picture over, platforms are often too crowded. Again, at St. Paul, customers are standing on the curb, hanging out into traffic because of the lack of space on the station platform. Narrow platforms. The image here of Tappan Street shows customers waiting in the limited space between Beacon Street and the yellow safety line. Devices like strollers and mobility scooters do not have enough room to fit in these locations. Limited wayfinding. Stations like Hawes Street, shown at the top in the last column, have limited wayfinding. Customers cannot tell which station they are at when they are on board the train due to the orientation of the signs. On the second row, steep slopes. Shown in the first picture, platforms not having a level slope and steep slopes make them inaccessible and create challenges for mobility devices, strollers, and shopping carts. Not to mention treacherous conditions when it's too rainy or icy out, like it has been in the last several days. Uneven surfaces. Stations also have uneven surfaces like the one shown here at Dean Road. This makes using a mobility device like a wheelchair or a walker impossible. Platform obstructions. Station platforms are obstructed by trees, which mobility devices cannot pass. Further, this creates pinch points and safety concerns for all customers, and in some cases, a physical conflict with the new Type 10 trains. This image shows an example of this condition at Dean Road. Lastly, stations are poorly lit, most relying solely on adjacent street lighting. This project will address the challenges that I just described. At the completion of the project, the entire C branch will be accessible. In working with the town of Brookline, we've designed a project that will preserve the look and feel of Beacon Street with its which is a unique Brookline asset. Through station consolidations, closures, and by shifting platforms to ensure accessibility and improve service reliability, the MBTA expects to see a 3 to 7% decrease in travel times. The project will bring improved wayfinding and lighting for customers. In partnership with the town, we are minimizing the impacts to public shade trees, and we have developed a plan to replant consistent rows of trees along the Beacon Street corridor. We have done this by thoroughly vetting all station locations and platform sizing to ensure that the minimum number of trees are disrupted and the maximum number of trees are saved. We've incorporated a row of trees, referred to as a tree lawn, at the back of the platform areas to eliminate impervious surfaces, reduce urban heat pockets, and provide a location for replanting along Beacon Street to create a consistent and evenly spaced row of trees where possible. Lastly, in working with town staff and through various design changes, we have ensured that this project will not preclude the future bridle path, which I look forward to taking advantage of when I'm not riding the Green Line. Now I will start to walk through each of the individual stations, and as was alluded to, it's quite a long presentation, so I will cover as much as I can concisely and quickly to allow for enough time for questions and answers at the end. We'll also share this presentation with the committee so that it can be distributed as required for folks to review. So here's our first station at Dean Road. We show the station in its current configuration. Passengers are standing on that thin platform, which I had mentioned. This is a similar condition that you'll see at many of our locations, but it demonstrates the challenges that were highlighted in the earlier slide. This next slide depicts an aerial image of the station as it is today. It highlights where platforms are located and where the trees are presently placed. The number and the diameter of the trunk is measured and shown in inches, and the green circles represent the approximate canopy size of the tree trunk. So you can see there in black with the inches called out, that's the trunk diameter size, and the green is kind of a spatial reference to that overall size in the current platforms situation. The future station shown here will locate both the inbound and outbound platforms west of Dean Road. In addition to the platforms and the trees shown in the drawing, the gray segments with the dotted line represents the draft plans for the bridle path, which I mentioned earlier. The project has coordinated all stations with the town to make sure nothing we install will interfere with the shared draft layout for the future project. As I'm sure many of you have identified, the platforms will impact a number of trees, most of which are on the new outbound platform side where it is being relocated. This is unfortunately necessary due to the hill that is present to the east of Dean Road. One of the primary parts of making an accessible station is having an accessible path of travel. A big part of this is related to the slope of the path. Here we show the slope of Beacon Street around Dean Road. There is a maximum slope, as part of ADA requirements. The cross slope is what is critical here, which is the slope from right to left as opposite the direction that you are facing. ADA allows for a maximum of 2%. For anyone entering and exiting the train, the cross slope is parallel to the tracks and to Beacon Street. This graphic shows the slope in the direction in the area around Dean Road. To the left, which is west of the platform, the slope is increasing from less than 0.5% to about 1.5%. To the east of Dean Road, it continues to increase to about 3%, significantly more than what is allowable per ADA code. Due to this increasing slope, we can only locate this platform on the west side of Dean Road. The same situation is also present at St. Paul Street, where the platform can only achieve accessible slopes on the east side of the intersection. With that in mind, we can return to the proposed future station and the trees that are impacted. There are 10 trees at this location that will need to be removed to allow for the new stations. They are shown in yellow here, varying in size between 30 inches and 4 inches, and most are located in that outbound platform area that I just described. The MBTA has committed to the town to do everything it can to maintain the character and the green space along the historic Beacon Street corridor, and are hoping to leave the space overall better than when we found it. Through close collaboration with the town of Brookline and their arborist, our team has developed a tree planting plan that is part of the presentation today. In the area of the station, a total of 9 new trees will be planted. This includes a dedicated tree lawn along each platform to maintain the continuous green ribbon along the corridor. The drawing shows the canopy size of the trees after a few years of growth. Once the trees have had a chance to establish themselves, with the species selected in collaboration with the town shown on the upper left side. To ensure that the trees will thrive and have the best chance of success, a 1-year maintenance period and warranty will be provided for each of the trees. Then they will be turned over to the town of Brookline as agreed upon to become town assets. The new trees planted will be between 2.5 and 3 inches in diameter, as the project and town arborist have found that statistically, trees of this size have the best chance for success, establishing themselves, and will often catch up in size to larger plantings fairly quickly. This is all to try to make sure when the project is complete, we leave the town with new stations surrounded by green space, just like the corridor was intended to be. I should also add that what is presented in these various slides is the worst case scenario. We've continued to work with the town on adjusting the locations of the shelters and electrical equipment and possible tree planting locations. If additional trees can be saved or planted, they certainly will be. We do not anticipate any additional impacts, but if any do arise, we'll be back to present to this committee and to the others to keep everybody informed. Here we will review the specific trees impacted and their current conditions. So here we're showing the 10 trees to be removed. Of those trees, trees number 2, 23, 24, and 25 are all pin oaks. They range in size from 20 inches to 30 inches, and they are in good general condition, with some trunks being in fair and no disease at this time. Shifting down a little bit, we see 3 more trees, numbers 26, 27, and 29, 2 sycamores and a crabapple, ranging in size from 12 to 22 inches, but all are in fair to poor condition generally, and some do have disease present as it is today. Shifting again, we see trees number 31, 32, and 41, a Siberian elm, a pin oak, and a Siberian crabapple, again, ranging in size, 2 at 6 inches, 1 at 22 inches, 1 at 4 inches. One is dead, one is poor, one is good, and the other one is to be surveyed in the near future so that we have complete information on that one. No disease present at this time. With that, I'll move on to Fairbanks and Brandon Hall. The next location is where Fairbanks and Brandon Hall stations are located. This location is a little different from many of our others, with a steep wood slope to the northern side of the tracks. While not as close to traffic, these stations feature a smaller, thin strip of asphalt, which is utilized as the platform. The location adds additional challenges of providing equal accessibility across the station down this slope for those who live along the westbound side of Beacon Street. Again, here showing a top-down view of the area, Fairbanks and Brandon Hall stations. As shown, the stations are very close together, only a few hundred feet apart, with the wooded hill line and the Beacon Street to the westbound. To the north, and the angled parking along Beacon Street and to the eastbound, and Beacon Street eastbound to the south. Pardon. Due to how close together these stations are, they will be consolidated during the project into a single new accessible station, shown here. This will allow us to save additional trees and reduce travel times along the line. That being said, we'll still maintain all accessible points to the station with a walkway along an area between the parking and the tracks. In maintaining this, we'll provide equal access to the new accessible ramps, which will be installed adjacent to the existing stairwells and down the slope from Beacon Street westbound. The project team worked hard with the town to find a true configuration that worked for these ramps and minimize the overall impact to the trees. They reviewed dozens of options, including which side that the stairs should be placed on, how long the ramp should be, how wide the ramp should be, keeping towards the top or the bottom of the slopes, using rams instead of slope walkways and different other foundation types. The configuration that was chosen and is shown here was selected as it not only impacts the least number of trees, but it also avoids the largest, most mature trees on the slope. This area has some very large trees, some exceeding 40 inches in diameter, but all of those trees were avoided based on this chosen configuration. Additionally, the T will be addressing stormwater drainage in the area by installing new irrigation features. The next slide focuses on the trees that do not need to be removed as part of this project. A total of 63 trees are impacted by the new infrastructure, although most are smaller and sapling style trees. These are located in areas where the ramps need to be located, as well as the platforms. 17 new trees will be planted, as shown here in the tree lawn on the south side of the new platform, and in the areas where the old platforms are being removed. As before, the species of the trees are shown in the bottom of the frame. Focusing on the specific trees being impacted, we'll start with the trees in the area of the ramp near the current Fairbanks station. Mostly small oak trees that have grown from acorns falling from the nearby larger trees. If you look at the overall size, 4 inches being the largest, all the way down to 1.5 inches. They are in good condition with no disease present, but again, these are mostly saplings that have sprung up from the existing larger trees in the area. Continue with these trees at Fairbanks Ramp. We have some more oak trees, mostly small crab apples. You can see the size, again, the majority of which smaller than 6 inches, two 11-inch, and one 7-inch. Varying conditions, with the majority being good, one in poor. No disease present for the most of them, but the crab apple tree there does show signs of disease. In the easternmost part of the station upgrade, we have the trees impacted by the Brandon Hall ramp. Starting towards the east, we have a group of mostly red oaks, as well as some other saplings. Looking at the size and the condition of those, vary in size, majority of them being 6 inches or less, one at 15 inches, one at 9, worth calling out, though the one at 15 inches is in fair condition, but does not show current size of disease. The majority of the ones that have been tagged and identified to date are good, and the current ones, which are marked with an asterisk, are currently under evaluation and review. Then we move on to the western side of the ramp, where we have the remaining trees, which are mostly small oak trees grown again from those acorns that drop by from the larger oaks in the area. Majority, again, under 6 inches. We do have one, I will call out at 8. There is a red oak and a second red oak at 8 at the bottom, all in good condition, none showing signs of disease. Well, Gwen made it off the train, so I'm a round of applause. I'm gonna hand it over to her because she'll do a far better job. Thank you, folks, for bearing with me. I'll turn it over to Gwen.
Thank you, Matt.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Matt, and thank you for covering for me. As much as we love the T, it is not always perfect. And today, some signal issues apparently stopped my train, and I had to switch to a bus to get home, which is fine because we like buses too. So jumping in where I think Matt left off, we are at the eastern area of Fairbanks Street and Brandon Hall. Here we have a number of trees that are impacted by the ramp at the Brandon Hall set of stairs. As shown here, we have quite a few trees that are impacted by this, although most of them, again, like the other trees at this station, are the smaller oak trees that falling from the bigger oak trees nearby. The biggest of these trees is 12 inches, although most are less than 6 and some as small as 1.5 inches that we are categorizing. Lastly, we have a rendering of what the future station could look like. Tree lawn is in the foreground with the wooded hill in the background. To the right, we see the electrical panels that power the station. The design team is still iterating on the design to find ways to reduce the amount of equipment required to power the station. And if we have updates, then this number of panels will just go down. Accessible crossing stations, amenities, and wayfinding signage are also all shown here. Next, we have Summit Station. Here we have the existing conditions similar to the other stations. You have narrow platforms tight against the street on one side and the angled parking on the other. Moving to the overview. Currently, the platforms are staggered and with the outbound beginning right at the Marion Street intersection and the outbound starting about 100 feet west, closer to the Summit Ave intersection. In the proposed station platform, both will be located between Marion and Summit to minimize the impacts to trees, but also to the parking in this busy commercial area. I'd also like to point out that although we can fit a tree lawn between the platform and the angled parking to the south of the station, due to the well-used left turn lane, there is not enough room for a tree lawn on the north side without taking a lane of traffic away, which is not something we want to do. At this location, there are 8 trees that will need to be removed to accommodate the improved platforms, split between the inbound and outbound platform areas and varying in size from 7 to 14 inches. And then proposed conditions for the new station, there will be 8 new trees planted, located mostly in the tree lawn, but some will also be positioned where the older portion of the station will be removed. The selected species are again shown in the top left corner of this slide for those interested. Moving to reviewing the individual trees impacted, we have our first 3 here, 2 green ash and a sweet gum, between 10 and 14 inches. The green ashes are in fair to poor condition. The sweet gum is in good condition. Here we have 2 more green ashes and another sweet gum. They are all in poor condition, varying between 7 and 14 inches. And lastly, we have 2 more green ashes in fair to good condition. Both are 12 inches in diameter. St. Paul is the next station we will review. The existing condition photo shows the outbound platform on the left side. This, like the other stations, is comprised of only a thin asphalt landing. In the overview shown, St. Paul is pictured from above. The station is currently a station split across the intersection. The outbound platform is on the east side of St. Paul Street and inbound on the west. As I mentioned earlier, this is a station where one side of the intersection has a steeper slope than the other. This requires both platforms to be located on the east side of the intersection, which is shown in this proposed configuration. This layout requires removal of 6 trees from 5 to 24 inches in diameter, mostly where the new inbound platform must be located due to the accessibility need. Fortunately, this leaves ample room for new plantings, both the new inbound tree lawn and where the old inbound station is being removed, for a total of 15 new trees at this location. This layout also allows us to maintain the tree planting area north of the outbound platform and maintain those 8 trees that are already there. Reviewing the individual trees impacted, we will work west to east, starting with the 3 here. 2 oaks and a sweet gum, all in good condition, varying from 12 inches to 5 inches in diameter. Here we have the other 3 oaks between 12 and 24 inches, varying between good and poor condition. Lastly, we have a rendering of St. Paul and what the future station layout will look like. This is typical of most of the stations on this line, with 2 accessible raised platforms, new signage and amenities, green space behind the platform, fences, and accessible crossings. Kent Street is the one station that will be fully closed through this project. Its existing conditions are similar to the other stations, but this one stands out to its low ridership and close proximity to the other stations, with its inbound platform located in the same block as St. Paul Street Station on one side and its outbound platform located in the same block as Hawes Street on the other. The existing station is split across the Kent Street intersection, inbound to the west and outbound to the east. Once the work here is done, the asphalt platforms will be removed, as well as some of the concrete landing areas that you're used to access them. The town sidewalks and crossings will be maintained, though. The removal of the platforms do not require the removal of any trees, but do allow space for new tree plantings, especially on the west side of Kent Street, which did not have many due to the platform being there. 6 new trees are planned to be added here with their types in the top left corner again. And lastly, we have Hawes Station. Shown here, the station has the same narrow and accessible platforms currently common among the line, with only a narrow space between the tracks and the street traffic, often with light poles or other obstructions in the path of travel. In the current configuration, both inbound and outbound platforms are on the west side of the Hawes Street intersection. In this location, in coordination with the town and MassDOT, the decision was made to keep both platforms to the west of the intersection. This change does require the removal of the U-turn lane location on the eastbound side of Beacon Street to allow for the wider platform. Traffic study was conducted to determine the impacts of this, and it was found that due to the low use of the U-turn lane and the nearby options for other paths, this was acceptable to close. And in doing so, this saves multiple on-street parking spaces and the 32-inch tree shown on the far right side of this picture. This choice allows the station to be constructed without moving any trees at this location. And new tree lawns will be installed, providing more trees here in an area that currently does not have many. Shown are the 13 trees the project plans to add to the station area between the inbound and outbound tree lawns. I know that was a lot, and thank you for bearing with me as I went through all of that, and Matt went through a lot of that. So thank you, Matt. I'm going to turn it back to him to summarize everything we talked about and talk about what's coming next.
I'm noticing a trend here where I talk too much. Well, it's supposed to be the other way around, you know. So I was supposed to have a nice easy summary, which I'll step through just as a quick reminder, because that was so much information that we covered there. So at Dean Road, 10 trees are removed and 9 trees are to be replanted. Moving down, if we look at the Fairbanks Brandon Hall area, 63 total trees will be removed with 17 replanted. But as a reminder, many of those were young trees, many saplings in that area that I described. Summit Avenue, 8 total trees to be removed and then 8 total trees to be replanted in their place. At St. Paul, we have 6 trees to be removed with 15 replanted. Then at Kent, we have no trees impacted, but we are able to add 6 trees based on the removal of those platforms. And at Hawes, again, no trees that are impacted, 13 are replanted. So here on slide 64 of the deck, you can see that overall in our collaboration, nope, that's not what I wanted, wrong notes here. So following extensive design review and a tree-by-tree field assessment, we've determined that 50 young trees and 46 mature trees must be removed to deliver this critical accessibility improvements to the C branch. This decision comes only after exploring all revisions to optimize our design and to ensure that the minimum impacts occur to the trees along Beacon Street. In addition to the trees that we saved throughout this careful design choices, we are committing to planting 98 new trees on Beacon Street, with the possibility of increasing that number based on funding that the MBTA has specifically dedicated for new trees as part of this project. We are dedicated to ensuring the C branch is accessible for everyone while remaining green and vibrant part of the neighborhood. In addition to planting new trees, the team is committed to ensuring that the existing trees in the vicinity of the work remain healthy. To safeguard trees during construction, we will implement protective protocols approved by the town's arborist. These include shielding trunks and roots with durable corrugated piping and installing dedicated fencing to separate active work zones from sensitive root systems. In current station locations, asphalt will be removed using hand tools to protect the trees and their roots that are to remain. The MBTA is committed to using the correct protection methods based on the site-specific location and the arborist's guidance. This project has taken a significant amount of work from both the MBTA team and the town of Brookline. This effort and collaboration started in 2022 during the initial design phase. We've held numerous engagements throughout the design effort, including open houses, various presentations to town committees, as well as our MIPA outreach. Our next scheduled presentation will be at the Brookline Commission on Disability this February the 11th. Once underway, the project is anticipated to move relatively quickly, reaching substantial completion by the end of 2026. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time and attention, and Gwen and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Matt and Gwen. That's a lot of information, and but really helpful the way that that you covered it. And I will attest that there has been a lot of back and forth with the town and the MBTA to get to this final plan. We're going to start a question and answer time now, and I'd like to ask the tree planting committee if you have questions for the team.
Hugh, you can go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, one question I had, and I can, if you want to let me show something on the screen, I can give you an example of what one of my concerns. Am I on screen share yet?
You should have permissions to share. Let me know if you're not
Okay,
able to.
well, I'm showing something on my screen, but maybe not on yours. Hang on. Okay, wait a minute.
I think the original presentation needs to be unshared first.
Sorry about that. Stop now.
Okay,
Great.
wait a minute now. Okay. Okay, do you see this one? Do you see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This was, I think it happened. You know, there's a pin oak, I think it's a pin oak, 30-something inch pin oak that there's been a lot of concern about saving. As you know, and I was concerned about whether that could be saved. And so I went up there and I actually measured it. And I think I measured 2 feet from at breast height between the actual trolley and the tree trunk. And if you look down below, it's even less than that, it's maybe a foot. So my question was, are these type C trolleys that you're talking about, the new ones? Is that what they're calling them?
The type 10 trolleys will be the
Type
new
10.
that are delivered. That's correct.
Okay, and how much wider are they than the current trolleys?
I don't have that measurement in front of me. That was presented when we presented on the Tappan and Inglewood stations, and it's not the trolley body that is wider as clarification. It is the trucks, which are the wheels that propel the trolley. So the truck system underneath the new Type 10s does not tuck in like the Type 8 that you have shown here in the picture. There are other components because it's a low floor vehicle and things that are inside the actual Type 8 that cause it to have those steps have been pushed to the outside of the vehicle. So the trucks where the wheels sit on the trolley are the wider part of the vehicle, not the body.
But you're not moving the track. You're not widening the track, right?
Correct. The same gauge. The wheels are the same distance apart.
Okay, so my question is, if we had 2 feet between what you're seeing now, what would it be under the new scenario?
Yeah, as was discussed when we reviewed this station, the trucks and the components that hang off of them will dig into that yellow line and the asphalt where it is bubbled up at the tree roots.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is physically, it just, you know, you can't have it 1 inch from it. I mean, physically, you can't have them that close.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to you know, illustrate the actual situation. So thank you.
Do you have any more questions, Hugh?
That's it for me.
Okay. Pam?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Matt and Gwen, for that great presentation. I just had a question about the soil. So I appreciate that you're going to remove the asphalt from places where there's no longer going to be a station. Could you say something about the soil that will be used for the tree lawns? Just thinking about urban soils and the tree pits that are often small relative to, background forest. I'm just curious what the plan is there to ensure they have enough nutrients and moisture to take up.
Yeah, so our arborist team and design team has been working with the Brookline arborist and their team to determine how best to handle soils. We do have some constraints since most of the loams or structural soils that the trees don't really have the strength to hold up a platform foundation, so they can't really be placed underneath our platform. But in the locations that we are doing these tree lawns, or digging around where we're planting trees. We're working with the town to figure out the best combination of either fresh loam or structural soils, or how best to handle that. But it's not going to be fill from a just general construction fill. It will be loam or some other material that's good for the trees to grow in.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question about the Brandon Hall Fairbanks station. Could you explain a bit more, kind of a two-part question, why there are two ramps coming from Upper Beacon Street down to the station? And then how is water runoff being handled with the new design?
Sure. So for the two ramps, part of accessibility is not just accessible access, but equal access. There are currently two stairs that come down from up the upper side of Beacon Street. So to make sure that we have equal access for everyone, we need to do a ramp at each set of stairs to make sure that we don't have access points that people who don't need mobility devices can use, but people who do cannot. So that was really the biggest factor in deciding that. When it comes to the stormwater, we do have designs for addressing stormwater both along the ramps and along the back of the platform. Where the platform is going, there's going to be a fairly short retaining wall. I think it's like 2 feet, not a lot, but just to give us the extra space we need for the platform. But that would potentially hold back, storm runoff. But there is plans. I don't have the specific plans in the deck to show you, but plans to address that stormwater runoff and bring it to nearby collection, storm drains, et cetera, to address the stormwater runoff on the hill at all the areas that we are going to be doing significant disturbances.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the tree planting committee members before we move on to members of the public? Then while we have these other questions asked and answered, I am going to share my screen and just hold up a timer for 2 minutes person. And we ask that people abide by that time. And if you start to go over by too much, we might have to mute you. We apologize. We respect you all so much, but want to make sure everyone can get their comments in. So I'm going to do that. And Liz, I'll leave it to you to start calling on people.
Okay, thank you. I'll call on by, I'm kind of going down my screen. So Mayim Baron, could you unmute and share your screen, please? Share your video, please.
I think I am unmuted and sharing my video. Am I not?
Yes, you are. Hello.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the care being shown in replanting trees and being very careful about what trees are being removed, and especially the care in removing asphalt around the roots. I have one question. I think it was about Dean Street Station that you made some point about a line of evenly spaced trees. And I wonder about that idea of planting trees evenly spaced in a row, when I think additional forest science research has shown that trees grow better when they're grown close to each other. So maybe that's an old idea, and I wonder if there's consideration of any shift to, could the trees be grouped to where there are 2 or 3 together instead of this even spacing thing? And also, what are the possibilities of, in addition to trees, additional lower shrubbery being introduced into those green spaces?
That is a great question. I'm going to let Jack Schleifer answer that one.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. And there are a bunch of things we're trying to balance in the design here. One piece is the historical design. So this is an Olmsted designed corridor that did have trees spaced out in a certain way. So we're showing a little bit of reverence to that in the current spacing and the current designs. But I think your point that we've learned some things since the Olmsted era and that we know that trees like to share their resource. I think that's a great point. That's part of the kind of impetus behind the tree lawn design that we currently have. So instead of having these trees in individualized pits, which is what we see so often in our urban designs, here we have a contiguous lawn at the back of each platform. And the hope is that that provides more space for rooting, more space for water infiltration, and also an opportunity for the trees to grow in a slightly less explicitly urban context. And then when we do have the trees really close together, it becomes challenging for maintenance because they grow differently, they start to compete with each other, and that creates just a different situation for maintaining those trees. So that's the answer that I can currently give. But yes, I see your hand again. If you will have a follow-up question, we can try to be efficient.
Well, I would suggest that the idea of trees competing when they're close together is being disproven by research that shows they actually grow better together. And I think your spacing was 14 feet apart, and that would take a long time for those trees to connect with each other. I understand the historical consideration that trees in a line were a nice idea in Olmsted's time, but is there a possibility to budge on that? And what about other lower canopy shrubs and such that might be added in around the trees?
Yeah, I think this is something we can definitely take back to the hive and see where we can fit in any other green material. I mean, this is also a reason why that Brandon Hall Fairbanks hillside is an important space to think carefully about, because those trees are working together. I think you're right. The trees compete and collaborate at once. So we can think about that. I can't promise that we'll be smushing too many in, but we can see what more greenery we can fit in our corridor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, folks, good evening. Alexandra Vecchio with the Town of Brookline, Director of Sustainability. Just a friendly reminder, can folks, when you're offering your public comments, if you could just state your name and either your address or your precinct number for the record before you begin your remarks, that would be helpful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So my
Thank you,
Barron precinct 11, and I live on Center Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Kayla Finn.
Hello, I'm Kayla Finn. I live at 1477 Beacon Street. I have concerns. I'm right across from the Brandon Hall stop. I'm on the eastbound side, so I look directly out over the stop. I'm actually going to share my screen if it's possible.
Might need to give you permission, so I can do that right now.
Okay, great.
Or if anyone else can. Make sure, Kayla. Okay, you should have permissions to share now.
Great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
Jack, you have to stop sharing.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Great.
Should be able to.
There we go.
Okay. So here we have, as you can kind of see here, there is an eastern screech owl that lives in one of the trees proposed. It's not one of the trees that's proposed to be removed. I've circled it here in red. You'll have to excuse my screenshot doodles, but I've X'd out all of the trees that have removals. If I were to zoom in, you can see that they're marked with the signs here. The tree that the owl lives in is actually this one right here. And my concern is that by removing these trees and in the proposed design, I know it's still going through iteration. I don't understand how you can, it's very important to make this accessible. And I understand the equal accessibility, but I just don't understand how that can be done without disturbing this eastern screech owl. So I'll go back and share. I've taken a few pictures. I take pictures at 600 millimeters with length for focal lens, and I'm at a safe distance. So just for full disclosure, I love owls, I love birds. I'm here for like pure their protection and just advocating for them. But as you can see here, over the last month plus, I've documented this owl living here. So I'm just really concerned about the removal of these trees, and how that's going to impact this wildlife. As we know, cavity roosting owls are protected under the Migratory Bird Act. And so I'm just curious, like, how this would be addressed and making sure that this will be considered. I guess I'm expressing my my call to have a wildlife professional come in and assess the situation, or kind of maybe hear your input of what might happen in this scenario, just so that we can work together to ensure that this owl is protected. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, thank you, Kayla. I'll let the MBTA team respond if they'd like to, but to me, this stresses the importance of making sure that not only do we know which trees we're removing and which trees we're preserving, which is the sake of this meeting, but also that we have really good tree protection plans for everything we're saving. Not that that will minimize or eliminate all the disturbances to this little guy, but that's a start. So I'm not sure if anyone else wants to add something.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you said. I would just add the MBTA's environmental team knows the environmental rules and regulations in and out, and they are constantly in the field, monitor these things, and they identify it. So we make sure to flag this for them and work with them in their guidance on what the proper way is to make sure that the construction can happen with the minimum impact to any creatures, but certainly the one that was highlighted here just now.
Yeah, and I'd like to be very involved in those conversations. I think this is one of those historic oaks that lines that upper Beacon Road, but I think this tree is one of the closest to the construction limits. So we'll have to think closely about that so we can have more conversations and try to keep you posted, Kayla, because I appreciate that a lot.
I would also like to add that I think, as a happy note, I think this is one of the trees that was originally slated to be taken down by the project, but through our, ongoing coordination with the town, we were able to find a design that did protect this tree. So that, I think, is a success of the team, that we were able to find a way to make sure this tree could be kept.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Carlos I'm sorry, I'm going to say this incorrectly.
Riejo.
Carlos Riejo.
Yes, I had three questions actually. One of them is, are the trees, and this is probably, well, for whoever has to answer it, the trees that are marked with spray paint but are not noticed, will those be removed? That's the first question. The second question would be, are the trees that are impacted, that have their roots impacted by the construction, have those been marked? Or have they been noticed? And the third question would be, if I can share my screen quickly. Just wanted to show an image. While you do that, Jack, I'm going to, or whoever it is, going to ask the third question, which was, I believe the ramp that was shown, you can see a roof, and has that been designed already, and what does it look like? But while I
you have permissions to share now, and maybe those other questions can be answered while we do so.
Yeah, no, so now I can share my screen. So this is Harvard Street and Beacon Street, and I just wanted to share. So August 2024, this is what it looks like. September 2014. May 2014, you can see that there's a bunch of trees that were there and then suddenly disappeared. And that's all I needed to share there. So I just wanted to reiterate that the maintenance plan is robust, and that something like what we just saw doesn't happen. Thank you very much.
Carlos, can you just share your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Carlos Vidrejo, Precinct 14. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, sure, I can try to answer those. You had a few questions. I'll try to remember them all. So I know first you asked if the spray paint was going to be removed. Those trees will not.
No,
only
if the spray paint on the trees that are not
yes.
noticed, are those trees going to be removed or not?
No, that spray paint was used to mark trees that were being evaluated through the different designs. Only the marked trees are the ones that are planned to be removed. Spray paint does not signify something we're planning to remove. Next was about the root impacts. Yes, we have considered that with the ramp designs. We've changed our foundation type to one that will be less impactful to the roots. I know when we were talking about Tappan and Englewood, we also had a pretty robust conversation about one of the trees. I think it was the Tappan tree, the large Tappan tree, about whether it could be saved inside the platform and the impacts that both the new train with the wider undercarriage and the foundations being built around it would have on the roots, and whether it could be saved because of that. The arborist and our team felt that no, that was not likely. So that is something we're considering. Then lastly, the roof. Right now, the plan is for a standard roof like the MBTA has on all of their ramps. We are required by our specifications to have roofs on all these types of ramps to reduce how slippery they are when there's snow, ice, etc. coming down. That can be pretty dangerous. So we always put roofs over our ramps to help protect them from the weather and make it safer for those using it.
So I would urge that since this is a historic site, Olmsted, as mentioned before, that the design of the roof be appropriately designed so that it doesn't look like the rest of the bike sheds or other things that the MBTA has placed in different areas that just have the corrugated roof system. Thank you.
I'd just like to reiterate the response that, because I've gotten many questions from this, reasonably so, that spray paint on these trees does not indicate that they will be removed. Again, it was just done by a surveyor. So any trees to be removed need to be brought to this exact type of hearing. So yeah, thank you, Carlos.
Thank you. We have Kara Peterson with her hand up.
Hi, yes, I'm Kara Peterson. I'm at 1450 54 Beacon on the westbound side. I wanted to say thanks very much for the attention that you've paid to accessibility and mitigating the loss of the mature and younger trees. But I'm hoping that more can be done as the Brandon Hall and Fairbanks stop in particular. Those renderings look unfortunately quite sterile with the currently slated removal plan. Following up on some of the other comments about additional landscaping and wildlife, I'm looking to you to explain what other further additional measures might be taken to preserve the total environment. So that might go towards things like the other landscaping that was brought up. Given their proximity to each other and low usage, which is similar to Kent and Hawes stations, and also the proximity to other stations nearby. I'm wondering if you could address first what consideration has been given to closing Brandon Hall or Fairbanks, like at Kent and Hawes, instead of consolidating them, which seems to create all kinds of problems that we're having to address because of the consolidation rather than just simply a closure. Wouldn't this help reduce the environmental impact at least one station, perhaps by half? And then the second part of my question is, given the improvements made already, or changes that you've made already, accommodations you've made already to preserve the total environment, what else can be done to preserve additional trees and the existing environment? Thanks for your concern.
Can someone from the MBTA help with this question?
Happy to start, and Gwen can fill in again as it relates to any environmental impact, whether it be vegetation or animals. We do have strict guidance that comes from our environmental team. A lot of it is federally and state regulated, so we follow those. Those might include limited hours of work when things can be touched, at certain seasons when things can be worked on or touched, as well as certain mitigation factors about the types of tools or the interaction that happens in those areas. So we'll work very closely with those environmental teams to make sure that we follow all necessary guidelines and guidances to do it. And Gwen will have more details on this. But as it relates to the station, we did look at keeping one or the other, Fairbanks or Brenton Hall, and eliminating just one. And actually through, again, a series of workshops with the town and with other folks here on our design team, did find that the consolidation actually minimized the environmental impact. Gwen, do you have more details on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it, Matt. There's not a huge difference mechanically between closing one station and keeping one open versus consolidating the two stations. Both, you start with two stations and you end up with one. We positioned that one station in the place that we could impact the lowest number of trees possible. And, you know, we looked at a bunch of different variations. If anyone had been at one of the earlier meetings about this project long ago, you would see a very different design that impacted far more trees and much larger trees. So that what we have today was really the driving factor was what impacts the lowest number and the smallest of the trees in the Fairbanks Brandon Hall area.
I might be misunderstanding, but I do think that Kara's question was about potentially closing both of those stations. Am I mistaken there, Kara?
That's right. Given how close they are together, and how close they are to other stations, it seems like that would argue for feasibly considering, you know, there just being no stops between Summit and Washington Street, which is not further than other parts on the line. And that would solve a lot of the problems and probably save money as well. And actually, sorry, I wasn't trying, when I meant total environment, I wasn't suggesting the work environment. I meant the total environment of the stations. So I understand that measures have been taken to protect the mature trees, which I really appreciate. But that's not the total environment of the entire hillside area, which now looks to be quite sterile by comparison to the fairly rich environment, including the owls, which I didn't even know about. So that's what I meant. I didn't mean the work environment.
Yeah, I think that might be just a limitation of the rendering. They were not able to render all of the thousands of trees that are on that slope. They were just trying to give a general idea of where the impacts would be and where they won't. But that I would not take that rendering and count the trees on there and say this is all that's going to be there. The only trees and areas that are going to be impacted are the ones that we are showing as specific. Only trees that are being impacted are the ones that have been tagged and presented here. Just the rendering has its limitations on in showing those things. When it comes to closing stations, those are relatively well-used stations. There is some pretty big, I believe, apartment complexes or condo complexes at the top of that hill. There's a lot of people with accessibility needs that use that need access to stations there. And looking at ridership and the distance between stations, it did not make sense to close two stations in a row.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Sean Lynn Jones, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Sean Lynn Jones. I'm president of the Brookline Green Space Alliance and a town meeting member from Precinct 1, living on Monmouth Street. The Green Space Alliance first wrote a letter expressing concern about this project back on August 20th of 2024, when we became aware of it. And although this isn't actually Groundhog Day, yesterday was, it's a little bit like Groundhog Day, the movie. I've sat through many, many presentations, this committee, the select board, the transportation board, and probably some others as well. And I do want to say there has been some progress. In that letter, we expressed concern about tree loss and the need to protect trees during construction and the need to replant trees as part of this project. And I do thank the MBTA and Jack Schleifer in particular for looking at those details and improving some of the initial designs greatly over that time. I'm not really enthusiastic about any of the tree loss. I'm kind of resigned to it. And I still have trouble with the Brandon Hall Fairbanks plans. But I want to focus on one particular point. We've talked a lot about what's happening in the stations. Back when we wrote that letter in 2024, we also emphasized the need for tree planting throughout the right-of-way, on both sides of the street, along the corridor between the stations. And just today, it came into my email inbox, a Mass GIS and a USFS tree canopy data map or aerial view, but it's more like a map. Brookline's very green. It looks like though someone has taken an eraser and just rubbed it all out all along Beacon Street. And that's why we need to think of going beyond just replanting at the station and maximizing every opportunity. There was a reference in Matt's presentation to spending some money on additional plantings beyond the project area, I think. And I think that's something that definitely should be explored. Even back, 25, 50 feet on the side streets as well.
Can you wrap up, Sean?
Yeah, but that map really brought it home for me. And I want to just emphasize that, that one point as we go forward, because it hasn't gotten as much attention. Thank you very much.
Very good points. Thank you very much. The next person we have is John Martin.
Hi, this is Tara Murray and my husband, John Martin. We're at 1563 Beacon Street. Just briefly, we've been Brookline residents for 20 plus years, 13 years living on Beacon Street. And while I appreciate the efforts to make things accessible, to be honest, I'm just horrified by the Brandon Hall Fairbanks plan. Today was the first day of seeing this type of presentation for me. I didn't see any renderings of the ramps. 63 trees to be removed is an exceeding amount. There's hawks, blue jays in the area, as Kayla said, owls. To me, this severely alters the sightline of Beacon Street. It does not help reduce noise from the trains and the traffic. Trees help prevent it, gives us shade. To me, like Cara had mentioned, it looks very sterile. I don't see how this beautifies the corridor. The coverings on the ramps, what does that look like? I'm a Fairbanks T-rider every day for 13 years, and I'm definitely going to miss that station. But the way those two look together or side by side with accessibility, I mean, to me, it just could look like massive buildings in the middle of the road. I agree with a resident to plant lower shrubs. I have a lot of concerns about the maintenance. I've seen crab apples at Brandon Hall diminish, be trimmed and cut down. That's great. MBTA is doing the maintenance for a year, but then we're the taxpayers. We have to pay for the maintenance. And I see a lot of trees replanted that are not growing. So I'm just not happy with how these plans look for Brandon Hall and Fairbanks. I can understand the other stations because it's very narrow, but those two are very different in terms of scale and platform width. So I think something more needs to be done before this is agreed upon. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if somebody wants to, from the MBTA mention, or, I'll gladly put my thoughts in writing to the town as was mentioned before by Elizabeth, I think to, send in the thought so it goes to the select board. But these are really important considerations for all the residents of Brookline and visitors.
Thank you. And yes, please send your comments to the select board. We'll share the email at the end of the hearing. So thank you.
I will note that I appreciate those comments a lot, and we've already gotten some letters and notes from folks. So we are expecting this is going to go to the select board. We know that. So there will be more opportunity to write in. So thank you.
So we have one more person, Cindy Palmquist.
Hi, thank you. I live at 1491 Beacon Street on the inbound side, directly across from the Brandon Hall stop. I also want to echo my support for the consideration to close both Brandon Hall and Fairbanks. I did some rough estimates, and it seems that the distance between Brandon Hall and Summit is the same distance as Fairbanks to Washington Street and as Hawes to Kent Street. So you're really talking about 0.2 miles between stops as being close. My concern is with the embankment and whether any environmental impact study was done on the flood risk to removing this number of trees. I know a lot of emphasis is being placed on the size of the trees, but in fact, all of those small trees are helping prevent erosion of the embankment. And because we have experienced flooding as a result of the water pouring down the embankment and then flooding Beacon Street and coming across, I'm curious what environmental studies were done on the risk of erosion on the embankment with this number of trees being removed. And my other question is, although there is high ridership at both Brandon Hall and Fairbanks, has any studies been done to anticipate whether the Brandon Hall riders can shift to Summit and the Fairbanks riders can shift to Washington Street, leaving the embankment without having to be disturbed? Thank you. And I don't know the number of my precinct.
Your address is fine, thank you. Can the MBTA address the environmental studies done on the tree removal, please?
Yep, so as part of the overall program, MBTA is required to do MEPA and NEPA compliance studies. So that's Massachusetts and National Environmental Protection Agency documentation. All that is submitted to the Federal Transit Administration, which is our oversight group, to be reviewed and approved. So all those proper procedures have been followed. I'll leave it to Gwen to answer more on the drainage. She's more in tune with that than I.
Yeah, so I think there were two other items that were discussed. One was related to closing both stations. And we do recognize that Fairbanks Street is fairly close to Washington Square and Brandon Hall is fairly close to Summit. That was what drove the decision to close one of those two. If we were to close both, the stretch between Washington Square and Summit would be by far the longest stretch between two stations on the C branch. 50%, maybe almost double the length between the two other stations, which is why there needs to be at least one station in between. That would be a very big impact, especially to those who may not be as mobile to have to travel so far to get to their nearest station when it used to be right next to them. When it comes to the stormwater management, I think I mentioned earlier, there are plans to address stormwater on all the locations that we will be having these impacts. So at both ramps and at the back of the station platform, this is included in the design, although we don't have any slides to show specifically about that right now. This has been considered and is being addressed at all the locations that we have these impacts.
Thank you, Gwen. We have a question from Jocelyn Murphy.
Thank you very much. I have a few comments and a few questions. I did write to the chair of the tree planting committee in Jack a little bit earlier so that I wasn't blind signing anyone. But so, you know, those questions remain. But I'd like to start by saying that I fully support accessibility and I really appreciate the efforts of the MBTA to improve access. But I'm concerned about public process here. Some of my questions are as follows. I'm curious to know how long it will take for 2.5 to 3 inch DBH trees to reach maturity and whether a year of maintenance is enough. I fully support the comments that were made by Kayla Finn regarding the wildlife that occupy these trees and wonder if there's a protocol in place. And I heard, Matt, you refer to regulations, but is there a protocol in place? for the tree removal vendor to inspect the other trees for nesting and other wildlife activity. I'm curious to know whether the lighting will be dark sky compliant. And finally, I'm troubled by the process here. No information at all was provided to the public with the agenda materials. It was completely blank. And yet today we heard that 96 trees, 46 mature trees are to be removed. I think it's premature for the committee to take a vote this evening until the public has had an opportunity to understand the proposal and respond appropriately. The tree planting committee, you are stewards of the town's public shade trees. And so to defer this to the select board, I think is not appropriate or responsible, because the select board will simply say, well, the tree planting committee voted this way, and so we'll support that. So I am respectfully asking the tree planting committee to put this over so that the public has an opportunity to consider the information that's been provided and respond appropriately at a future hearing, whether or not that hearing is, in a week or 2 weeks. But it's simply premature at this point. I quoted some of the minutes from the December tree planting committee in my correspondence to Jack Schleifer and
That was October. That was an October meeting.
October?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for correcting that. But information was requested back in October, and that including 75% design material, and none of that material has been provided to the public. So please don't take a vote tonight. Put this over so the public has an appropriate opportunity to respond. Thank you.
Jocelyn, can you just share your name and precinct, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did. Jocelyn Murphy. I'm a town meeting member in precinct 16. Thank you.
Jocelyn, I can respond to your first question, and then I think I need to defer the rest to the MBTA team. Your first question was how long it takes a 3-inch caliber tree to reach maturity, and that is subject to a lot of variability. So I hate to say that it varies, but it really depends on the growing conditions for the trees, what they're able to plug into, how much water they get. Generally takes, decades for trees to reach maturity, but that really varies, and maturity is a kind of nebulous term or not defined term. I will say that a full year of maintenance is kind of industry standard for a warranty associated with a tree. So I'm comfortable with that. Realistically, it can take 2 to 3 years of watering and care for a tree to fully establish and reach its roots out. But getting a year of maintenance on that contract is solid, and then the town is prepared to assume watering and maintenance for the trees beyond that. But there's a chance that some will need to be replanted in that time. It's always hard to tell. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Gwen and Matt, can you answer to the timing of the plans and how many meetings were held with the town and how much material was shared along the way?
Respectfully, Chair Erdman, the meeting for tonight, there's an agenda packet that is absolutely devoid of any information whatsoever. I had no idea that 96 trees were going to be cut down or removed in connection with this project. And I just think I don't even know if the Chapter 87 Section 3 notice requirements were met. That's another question. But I'm also interested in a response to my question about the protocol with respect to wildlife. Thank you.
I can speak to the fact that the Mass General Law Chapter 87 standards were all met. This was posted in the Herald. There were also physical postings put on the trees more than 2 weeks prior to this hearing with all the information. So per Mass General Law, those boxes were checked, but I don't disagree that there weren't a bunch of other materials shared in advance.
Thank you.
I'll answer the last outstanding question, I believe, which is about the wildlife and the procedures. Again, it varies by species and what we're talking about. So I don't have a definitive answer other than, again, that we do work with those environmental teams within the MBTA and our experts that are on contract with us to make sure that they follow them all. but I do know for sure it relates to, again, limitations on work hours, limitations on work seasons, and variable items such as that, depending on what the species is that's being evaluated or under concern.
Thank you very much, Matt. Is it fair to say that the tree that Ms. Finn pointed out will be marked as protected? Because of course we know that mistakes can be made. I think the screech owl mating and nesting period begins in March. So is there any danger that these trees will be removed before then?
That's certainly something that we're going to take back to our environmental teams to make sure that they're aware of that, owl, and that they will give us the proper guidance. I'm afraid to speak what it is. I don't want to go out of place, get out of my lane, but all of the things that you stated sound reasonable, and I imagine that they will take that as well as potentially other actions.
Thank you.
We have a hand up from Evelyn Murphy.
Yes, good evening.
Can you state your precinct and address, please?
1443 Beacon Street.
Thank you.
So, and I've lived in Brookline for about 40 years. Look, I know that there's been a tremendous amount of effort, both by the town and by the MBTA, and thoughtful effort. So, and we've come a long way. But I have to say, I'm sort of with Jocelyn right now about prematurely taking a vote on this, because I think in terms of the Brandon Hall Fairbanks area, as I listen to it, I hear how much care and attention has been given to each of those trees at that stop, but I still think we can get a better plan. And I don't know whether it's consolidating down to one place or eliminating, but I do think because of the impact there, I would separate that out at least and try and get a little bit better, less destructive plan here for those trees. It's just, when I look at the numbers and I see the impact there and what it's going to do, it breaks my heart. This is a part of Brookline and along Beacon Street that is important for environmental reasons as well as for climate change. And I do not want to be seen as sort of defending environmental issues against handicapped issues. I don't want to be pitted in that way. And I don't believe that you're doing that, but I'd be careful. This has nothing to do with access for handicapped people. I'm as supportive of that, and handicapped people are as supportive of environmental issues. So be careful on this. I don't think we're ready to vote on it yet, because I don't think the full impact at that particular stop has been grappled with enough to find a less impactful way to proceed.
Thank you.
Liz, could I just make one kind of announcement or point of clarification for folks? I just want folks to understand earlier when Jack was referencing the fact that we have received comments in writing opposing the removal of the trees, and therefore that this would be moving to the select board, that is automatically the process that happens. So regardless of the vote taken by the TPC, those comments in writing mean that it is advancing to the select board for review. So I just wanted to make sure folks understood that comment that he made earlier.
Thank you, Alexandra. Hugh Madison.
Yeah. Hi. Just I tend to agree that actually I've just seen the plans myself in the last day or so, and the ones that just were presented, and I'm wondering if it would be feasible to delay a couple of weeks maybe and get these up on the town website and send a notice out so that people do have time to digest this. And I would be interested in what the T thinks about holding off a couple of weeks for a selectmen's meeting.
I wonder if we could join the disability presentation and have a joint vote at that time, which is, I believe, the 10th of February. I would have to ask Jack and Alexandra and Millie, is that an option available?
I am not certain.
I believe so, Liz. Yes. I mean, we would need to make sure that the chair of that committee is comfortable with it, and it would have to be duly noticed as such. But we should have time to be able to do that. So yes, it is a possibility for assuming TPC has a quorum, for them to take their vote at that meeting. And I would assume you would want that to be a separate vote from the Commission on Disability.
Yes. So that meeting is on February the 10th, is it?
11th, I believe.
So I can make the 11th. Pam, can you make the 11th?
I'm looking.
I can make it.
Okay.
Yes, I can make it.
So the tree planting committee is in agreement to join the committee for disabilities and do a vote at the end of that hearing, if that is acceptable.
Liz, is that also at 5 o'clock?
Jack, is that at 5 o'clock?
Let me confirm. I believe so.
Okay.
And can we also get it up on the town website pretty soon?
All meeting materials that are shared at a public meeting have to be posted within 24 hours of that meeting. So these will all be posted as part of the TPC meeting packet by tomorrow. And then they will be posted as part of the Commission on Disability meeting packet as well.
Good.
Yep. And their meeting is not currently posted, but they standardly meet at 5.
Okay. So we will plan to join that meeting. I'd like to thank Matt and Gwen for your presentation. I feel like a lot of questions I had were answered. I appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I know there was a lot of work to get to this point. But I do agree that a little sitting time would be good to look everything over and have the vote at the next hearing.
Would like to also reiterate that, as Alexander mentioned, meeting materials will be posted. So that means the slideshow from this presentation will be up and available following this evening's hearing for everyone to flip through at their own convenience.
Okay. So I think we have Cara Peterson. Do you have a comment?
I do, just one quick thing, and that's thank you for the additional time for consideration. But I appreciate that all the materials have to go up on the town website. But as someone who's only just recently become aware of how anything works in this town, I haven't lived here that long. I can tell you that finding out information is not easy. And so I just want to say thank you for sending out the mailing that we got a couple of days ago. And I would encourage Brookline to make further outreach with the new plans as opposed to the old plans that went out, because as everyone is saying, we didn't see these plans until today. So if you want actual if you want actual responses from people about what's really happening, we're always trying to catch up at these meetings as opposed to knowing what's really happening. So I think your meetings would be more effective, especially the one coming up, if we're aware of what the current plan is going forwards and people can really have a chance to weigh in. Most people don't even know how to do that. Just talking to neighbors about the plan, that they hear about it and they're like, what's going, I have no idea. They're not always owners. They don't receive the mailings that get sent out. So in terms of public awareness, when people find out about things, it's often quite late in the procedure. So thank you for the additional time for consideration. But if you want feedback from people, there has to be a mechanism for them to find out that information that's a little bit more timely. And I appreciate you don't always know yourselves when things are happening. But that's just to, let you know about enhancing community participation.
Yeah. Thank you. And we have a hand up from John Martin.
Yes, hi. This is Tara. Sorry, this is Tara again. My husband John is next to me. I would like to reiterate what even Cara mentioned. I've been a resident for a long time. I really wasn't aware of some of these meetings. Some of those dates I was even out of town. It is hard to find some of these plans. Everything is very intricate. But what I would like to suggest, please, is when anything goes on the site, that there are renderings of what especially Brandon Hall and Fairbanks looks like, because that seems to have the greatest impact of potential tree removal and for the animals and wildlife and sightline. The renderings are crucial for people to really understand what that looks like, aside from the tree removal, which to me is most important. But it's really hard to grasp just based on that presentation from the MBTA of what that exactly looks like for us that live on Beacon Street and travel on Beacon Street. So I would kindly ask if that could be included. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a motion to conclude the hearing.
Second.
Third.
Okay. Thank you for the interest, the comments, and the presentation. I think we got a lot shared and a lot of information here today, and a little time to settle and think about it will benefit the project overall. So I look forward to the presentation next week. And thank you again, Matt and Gwen.
Yeah, thank you to the MBTA and everyone else for your comments. We're always on a mission to make our public processes more accessible, so we appreciate it. And I'm grateful to have 40, 50 people at a meeting like this, but we can always get better in terms of what we're sharing and how we can all be on the same page. So cheers to that. We do have some administrative business to handle, just approving minutes from some past meetings. But other than that, I don't know if there's too much else for us to do tonight.
No. So motion to accept the October 21 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
I'll move that.
Second, third. And motion to accept the December meeting minutes.
So move.
I'll second.
Excellent. Do we have any town updates?
Not too many. We remain busy as a forestry team with projects like this, trying our best, putting in our spring planting and tree order, which is about to be put in for us to order hundreds of trees for the coming seasons for our in-house planting efforts. We continue to work on our front yard tree planting program. So if people have front yard space where they're interested in planting trees that's visible from the right of way, we would love to work together on that to get more trees on our properties. Then we continue with our pruning, our other tree healthcare, and all of that work. So we're staying busy over here, but I'll be brief.
Thank you. So I think I'll take another motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll second.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Cool.